had just a presentation before in the ballroom, and yeah, it took a little bit more minutes for finalizing the last questions. Yes, I will just continue with more or less the same topic. The title is also more or less the same, a little bit different about PDF-based eIDAS trust services. And again, I will introduce a little bit about eIDAS, and I hope that nobody has been attended the presentation before in the other room. Are there any ones? Oh no. Okay. If you really want to hear it, yeah, again. Yes. eIDAS regulation, as I already said in the last presentation, also was published in 2014, and it's the first regulation of the EU on electronic identification trust services for the internal market and so on. The most important thing about this is that this is the first time that there is a common understanding about eID, that means electronic identification, in every country in the EU. And the intention behind the regulation was to achieve a framework where it's possible that if somebody has an eID card, an eID from Estonia, can take this and travel to Portugal, to Lisbon, and then use this, for example, to open a business or to go to a public authority and to do any official stuff. And they have to then take this, and also they have to accept it. They are obliged to do this, and this works then across the EU. The same can happen vice versa, or for example, the Spanish craftsman can come to Frankfurt and then open his shop and so on, and he can use this eID to go to the Amt, to the Behörde, and then to show this, and they have to read this in and then also validate this, and then they have to accept it. To be honest, even if this is now has taken place and it's valid, it is not possible in the moment. So if you have the intention to use your national eID card stemming from another country than Germany and go to a German authority and show that to them, I want to open such a shop or something like this, they will say, oh, interesting, do you have a paper? Because they are not able in the moment to use this. They are just able to use the German one, the German eID card, but not the other ones. But they have to do it until, I think, end of 2019, which is a very, very big challenge for a lot of them all over Europe. And the other part is about these trust services and what these are. I will show you right over here. The most important trust services are the issuing of qualified timestamps and timestamp certificates. Then the issuing of certificates for qualified signatures. That means person-related signatures. And a new one, which was also common in some countries of the EU before the regulation, but which was completely unknown, for example, in Germany, is the so-called seals. That means this is exactly the same than the signatures, but they are not person-related, they are organization-related. And why we didn't have this in Germany before, nobody knows. I think the understanding here was that the electronic signature is the direct counterpart to the handwritten signature, and a handwritten signature can only be done by a natural person and not by an organization. And therefore, we didn't have this concept of seal in electronic seal in Germany before. Now it's there and you can use it, and it's a very demanding thing. So a lot of companies, especially in the public sector, they are now shifting to using electronic seals instead of electronic signatures to sign their documents, because this fits better to their a business purpose than using a person-related signature. There are other trust services eIDAS has specified. One which is completely unspecified is electronic documents. There you will only find one sentence in the regulation, and there is no real value about this. Nobody knows what has to be done with this and whether there is a business case or not. The only relevant information is that there should be no discrimination whether you are presenting an electronic document or a paper document to a public authority. This is the only important thing. That means if you are now involved in a court case or something like this, and you say, oh, I don't have it on paper, but I have it in electronic form, nobody should say to you, no, I need it on paper. It is not possible to have it only in electronic form. This is the intention of this trust service. The meaning of trust service, in my understanding, is not correct. So we will see whether this gets specified in more detail in the next years or not. In the moment, there are no activities around this. The other trust services which should be mentioned are about electronic delivery. Everybody in Germany knows about the email or e-post, and these type of qualified delivery services have been now standardized and also included within the trust service universum of eIDAS. And two other services are mentioned here. One is about long-term preservation. I will come to this in a couple of minutes. And the other one is validation. That means I need to validate such a signed or sealed document and then give you a legally binding validation report about such a signing. Okay, eIDAS and PDF. Why is this important? Why does this fit together? Yeah, the vast majority of all electronically signed documents are PDF documents. In our experience, more than 99% of all documents which get signed are PDF. So I don't know about people in companies who sign Word documents or open office documents, even if that's possible. Even if you look at the efforts made at LibreOffice to implement natively a digital signing component and so on. This is also supported by that document formats, by docx and by ONT, but still, this is not very common to do it. Why? Because such formats are still can be easily changed, and in contrast to that, PDF is a static format. It is a sort of electronic paper for static representation, and it gives more gives you more the feeling of a final state which you sign then. And instead of having a dynamically editable document. Okay, the other thing is that there are ISO standards for this document format and ETSI standards for signing PDF called PADES. And this PADES is the only one which mentions directly a document format. And therefore, I think this is also a hint in the direction that PDF has a very specific relationship to eIDAS and to signing. I will skip this. Electronic timestamp. Okay, this is the one I already mentioned. There have been after publishing eIDAS in 2014. A lot of people said, oh, now there will be a new start in digitizing processes, and we can now use a lot of new things, and this is really binding for everybody because this EU regulation overrules any national regulation. So there is it's not possible for a member country to build a new law which contradicts the regulation of the EU. It means this one is really binding for every country in the EU, But the problem was they, after publishing this eIDAS regulation, that a lot of people said, yeah, and how do I have to implement these things? Are there any guidelines or are there any frameworks or something like this? And therefore, they issued these so-called implementing acts, which clarified a little bit more in more detail how to implement such services. And if you download such an implementing act, you will find also that they have references, for example, to ETSI standards. That means these implementing acts are necessary for somebody who want to implement an eIDAS compliant trust service, because there he really finds information necessary, which standards of ETSI, of CEN or ISO or whatever else underlie under specific trust service. Yeah, okay. If you now look at the working areas where ETSI is all operating, you see here these blocks about trust service status list providers, European trust list, the trust service providers supporting e-signature or trust application service providers, and so on and so on. And everywhere where you see these green check marks, we have established ETSI standards. There are still areas where there are no check marks, so they are still under work. For example, we don't have any specification published for signing services. So if you want to implement a signing service, there is no reference where you can say, there is ETSI standard 319177 or whatever else, which describes exactly what are the requirements for implementing a qualified signing service. No, this is still under work. I think in 1 or 2 years we will have one, but in the moment it's not published. Another thing which is very, for us, it's very important, we are waiting for that, is here about remote QSCD. Remote QSCD, remote qualified signature creation devices, are another word for the core element for remote signing. That means that you don't have to use anymore a smart card for signing directly on the client, but you can use your certificate on a remote hardware device like an AHSM, and you can use your certificate there to sign a document you have on your screen, or which resides on a server or whatever else. But you don't have the certificate in your hands, but it's on a remote device. And this one is a very hard stuff, because there the security requirements are very high, and most of the market, the companies in the market dealing with electronic signature or document signing, they are waiting for this finalized standard for remote QSCDs, because the core element for every cloud signing is such a remote QSCD. Okay, when you look at ISO 32000-2 and which signing standards are referenced by this, you will see that only 3 ones are referenced within ISO 2000-2 in the chapter 12.8, I think. And these are the CADAS standard. This is a European norm, EN, therefore. This is PADAS, the PDF-based Advanced Digital Electronic Signature standard. And this is the RFC 5816 and 3161 about timestamping. This is the ones who are referenced there. And the other ones are also published by ETSI, but don't play any role within the ISO 32000-2. Yeah, okay, signature architecture cloud. The classical signature architecture we had up to now for qualified signing, not for advanced signing or something like this. Qualified signing was on one part the so-called client signature. On the client signature side, we had the user at his PC. He needed a trusted viewer. He needed a signature creation application, a program who did the signing, and he needed a hardware device containing his private key and doing the signing operation. And this is the secure signing creation device, SSCD. Sorry for all these acronyms, but otherwise they are getting so long in word terms. And this was the classical way, and it's still the way most of the people, especially in Germany, are signing in a qualified way. They're using smart cards because it was the only medium where you get a qualified certificate for signing and so on, and therefore, yeah, okay, there was no other chance. You had no possibility to receive such a certificate on a different device like an HSM. Besides this, there was another architecture, the server signature. We already knew about that, which has been used for mass signing, where we have a client which is still just starting such a process on a server. We have input documents, and we have 1, 2, or a bunch of such smart cards attached to such a server, and this server then signs with these smart cards all this stuff. This is the so-called server signature. We are in former times and still in common use, especially in Germany, for use this. What we wanted to end up with was a so-called remote signing or server-side signing. That means that we don't have the crypto token with the certificate and the private key at the client side, but shift this to the server and have only an eID or two-factor authorization on the client side, do the whole signing and the signing process with the certificate and so on the server, and give back the signed document or a view on the signed document to the client. It means the signing app is on the server, the certificate is on a secure device and so on, and the client is only making the authentication. This is the intention behind this, and this was made possible by a short sentence within the eIDAS regulation, a very short sentence, only I think two words. Where if you look at the article 3.7, you will see it is created using e-signature creation data that the signatory can use under his or her sole control. And this is a very important thing, this sole control about his private key. How to achieve this? If you are a client here at Berlin, sitting at your tablet, and you want to issue or to start a signing process with your private key residing on a device 200 kilometers away from here, and to be sure that only you can start this process and issue such an signature, and it's not possible for anybody else to do the same. And this is the content of this not still published standard about these QSCDs, remote QSCDs, which deals exactly with this problem, how to establish a secure protocol which enables the client to issue such a call to the server, and that such a signing process will get started. And if we end up with such server-side signing process, we have the big advantage that we can use qualified signing on every device, on a smartphone, on a tablet, on every operating system, and we don't have to issue to the client anymore a crypto token, a USB stick, or a smart card, or anything else. This is the intention behind this. But to achieve this, we have to deal with a couple of problems, and also to implement a lot of technology and protocols. There was one initiative about this who said, okay, we need to push this standardization, this lack of standardization in that area further on, and build up a standard for so-called cloud signatures. It means that I can sign in the cloud. I don't need anything beside my mobile device, and that's it. And okay, I think everybody knows about these scenarios you have seen in movies, where the manager signs the contracts in the airplane when he steps out and so on, because everybody signs every 5 minutes 10 contracts and so on. Yeah, this is the image everybody has in its mind, but the thing is still that a lot of companies really demand for this, because they are not willing anymore to roll out specific hardware to the clients. And they want to be independent of such hardware devices. This cloud signature initiative formed in 2016, and yeah, okay, just. And this is what was the foundation with some international companies and experts from industry and universities, some solution providers, technology companies, and especially some trust services. And there was, it's not surprising, there was some overlapping with the ETSI ESI group. The initiator of this CSC has been Adobe. Adobe is the only international company I know about who is really an active member at ETSI in the electronic signature group. And they said, okay, we need to do this in that way. And therefore they asked the other members there, are you willing to found together such an initiative? And most of them, also we as a company, said, yeah, we will do this. And in the moment, we have made this up to a real foundation, which is located, I think, in Belgium, which with some directors, and we have published a specification, the version 0.7, which describes the necessary protocols to implement such a cloud service for qualified signing. Yeah, as I said, this is a consortium between application service providers, technology providers, and trust service providers. It's very important that you have these trust service providers, because they are the only ones who are allowed, in the eIDAS slide, to operate such a remote QSCD. If you, as a normal company, say, okay, I will buy an HSM from a manufacturer, and I will then start such a remote signing service, you can do this only for advanced signing. If you want to do this for qualified signing, you have to also issue certificates. And to issue certificates, qualified ones, you have to fulfill a real big bunch of requirements and regulations. And this is a very expensive and working intensive process. Therefore, only big trust service providers can handle this, and therefore we had this included within this CSC. How does this look like, a CSI architecture? Just here you have these qualified remote signature service providers, the so-called trust centers. They have an HSM for storing the private keys of the users, and they have this so-called signature activation module, which is then enabling the signing process with the private keys. You have a signature creation application, and you can also have a business application document management system. If you map this architecture, for example, to established architectures around, everybody knows about an Adobe Sign, then you can look at Adobe Sign as a cloud document service provider together like a signature application service provider. Adobe Sign will not deliver you this remote signature service provider component. But there are other ones which has been built up, for example, at Swisscom and so on. They are also using this architecture, and they offer you these both parts and not the left one. Yeah, the specification we have published at CSC deals only with that communication between the signature creation application and the remote signature creation service. And this can be downloaded for free, and you can also implement this for free. We have developed together with Adobe a test bed, so that if you really play with thinking about developing such an architecture, you can use this testbed to verify your implementation against the specification. And I think this works very well. We have done this already with, I think, with 3 trust centers in the moment, with Bundesdruckerei, with Swisscom, and with an Italian one, I think, in InfoCert. They are also have used this testbed to validate their implementation. Yeah, okay. Let's come to another trust service of eIDAS, long-term preservation. Okay. We have this is text you will find within the eIDAS regulation, the Qualified Preservation Service for Qualified Electronic Signatures. That means they don't mention anything about preserving any document or document format for a long time. Even if the service is called Qualified Preservation Service or Long-Term Preservation Service, they don't care about keeping the documents stable for a long time. They only deal with the stability of the qualified signature which has been applied to a document. This is a common misunderstanding when people read about long-term preservation in the eIDAS. They think, oh, now it's very finely specified how to archive my documents for a long time. No. How do you achieve this? Whether you store your documents on a hard disk or on tape or on a CD doesn't matter. The only thing here is how to keep the evidence value of your signature stable and valid for a long time. This is more or less the same in intention like the TR-ESO specification in Germany. They are also, in the beginning, they wanted to focus also on the long-term preservation of documents, but then there was a shift in the focus, and then they restricted it only to the preservation of the evidence value of the signing. That means this is the thing behind. Nevertheless, you have, if you want to offer such a service, you have to deal with storing documents in a appropriate format, and so on, with additional validation data and so. And therefore, you have to look for an appropriate format which enables you this. And that means which gives you the possibility to store signature data, payload, normal payload data, metadata, and verification data. For example, in the German approach with TR-ESO, one has decided to use a format called XAIP, this Extended Archival Information Package format, which is an XML-based format to use as a container format. But there are also other approaches as well. Last year we had a conference at Munich where we have published a paper about 4 candidates for such archive container formats. The first one, as I said, the XAIP, which is the basis of the TR-ESO specification, which is in an XML format. There is one which is in common use in Britain or US. It's called XFDU, which is also an XML format which is standardized at ISO 13527. And there are two new candidates. One is ASIC, the Advanced Signature Container, which is also part of the specification of ETSI. And this had become an CEN standard with 319162, which is if you look more closer to this, it's just a sort of zip container. And this zip container can contain meta information, can contain signed documents, can contain evidence records, and so on. It means a very capable and effective storage way. It means it's not XML, it's in binary format, and therefore it's more efficient in in storage space. And the last candidate in this row here is about PDF-A3, because PDF-A3 is very similar in that way to ESIC. With a big advantage, PDF-A3 also has a visual representation, which is not being part of ESIC. ESIC is just a zip container, but in PDF-A3 you always have this visual representation, even if it's only a sheet of paper, electronic paper, containing a sort of content of all the stuff which has been included within the PDF-A3. Due to this capability to have arbitrary file attachments, PDF-A3 I think is a very good candidate for this. We have validated therefore PDF-A3 for that. If you look for this PDF-A3, you have the PDF catalog, you have XMP metadata, you have this main document, which is an amount of PDF objects, and you have these file attachments, can be arbitrary formats, and you can also attach signature files, detached signature files in a CADIS format, and you have this DSS, this document security storage, which contains verification information. All this stuff is standard and can be used by this. But if you evaluate this against the requirements for such cryptographic containers, you see here, for example, you need to have a self-contained document format. Okay, I think PDF-A3 has proven that it's really self-contained. This is a very good candidate for this. You have to be able to store arbitrary metadata. You can do this in principle, but if you have ever tried to convert XML metadata to XMP metadata, you will have encountered that this is a really hard job. XMP is a nice format for semantic networks, but it's, in my opinion, it's a very bad format for storing arbitrary metadata, because it's a lot of overhead and it's not very self-explanatory. Therefore, this is a thing, yeah, you can use it, but there are some restrictions. Storing of multiple documents, okay, fine. In integrity protections can be handled by signatures or evidence records, and mechanism for securing cryptographic keys. For that, you need something like timestamps or hash trees. That's the other ones. It means if we make this validation, could do PDF-A3 do the job? We have this self-contained document form, yes. It's really a unique selling point. The metadata, yes, but actually only via XMP. I think very awkward. And then storing of multiple documents and data files, yes. But PDF-A3 requires always a primary document, even if when it's a dummy. It means in zip, you don't have visual representation. There is no primary document within a zip. But in PDF-A3, you have the envelope, and this is the primary document, and you have to take care about this. And you have no versioning on the attachment level. It means you cannot have different versions of the same attachment and have this differentiated directly in PDF-A3. This is a drawback for PDF-A3, but okay, I think we can live with this. Integrity protection, okay, via PADIS, but only the whole PDF-A3 document. PADIS is not designed to handle only parts of a PDF-A3, like an attachment. It handles always the whole document. And if you need to deal with such containers, which can be extended in the future, you should be able also to have signatures will cover only parts of the attachments. And mechanism for securing cryptographic keys also partly on a per embedded PDF document base via this profile. And this is not practicable for a big number of documents, because then if you end up with a lot of timestamps you need to use, and this is not very efficient and not and can be very expensive. Yeah, what is a requirement for a more suitable PDF-AX, which can be used as such a crypto container, is, in my opinion, is native support of evidence records. It means that you can have this an entry in a PDF-A3 beside the DSS, also an entry containing an evidence record following evidence record syntax, and that I can formulate a relationship between the PDF-A and the signature metadata of the attachments. And we really strongly need, not only for this type of usage, but also for the others, a more efficient way of storing metadata. I don't think that XMP will be the right way to do this. And I think there we should really end up with a better approach. As far as I know, for PDF-A4, there will be a revision of the XMP design, and that we can have some hope that we end up with a more better implementation of metadata there. In summary, what we want to have is a better suitable PDF-A3 plus, and this should be as like a sort of a combination like ASIC plus PDF-A. This can be done. I think that there is not much to do, but there are some specification work to do to end up with these additions. Yeah, and by that I think I can close this presentation. I hope I have given you some impressions about mainly two trust services. One is the remote signing, and the other one is the long-term preservation, and I'm awaiting your question. Thank you.